jumping around. They rush 4. Plenty of time for John now. Squeezes, steps up in the pocket. LA can run. Inside the 10. Head first. He fires. 5-yard line.
Manning out of the gun. Manning lets it fly. It's caught by Thomas. There's the record for Peyton Manning. Rushing 4. Ball comes out of the hands of Newton. It's on the ground and still on the ground. Picked up by T.J. Ward at the 4-yard line.
Here we go. First snap of the overtime. The Broncos have been in 3 overtime games this year. They won them all. Got him at the 40. It's Thomas at the 50. Stiff arm got him free to the 30. To the 20. Thomas to the 10. Denver's going on to New England. They win it on the first.
Nothing wrong with Orange and Blue Podcast.
Well, Broncos country, I'm sorry to say you have to join us here on Nothing Rhymes with Orange and Blue with one more week with no news and nothing to talk about. I mean, it's just been such a blur of psych. The Denver Broncos have acquired via trade Russel freaking Wilson. I mean, do you hear me? Russel freaking Wilson! Oh my God! I mean, it's been a whirlwind week, and I am so pumped. Welcome everybody to the Nothing Rhymes with Orange and Blue podcast. I am your host Johnny Baki, and with me, as always, my best friend, godfather to my kids, and my co-host Isaiah. Dark Knight. I'm going to give it to you. Dark Knight Henderson. What's up, buddy? How was your week?
Whew, my week was good. It was actually really good.
I really
like everybody else, I saw the Aaron Rodgers news dropped. We all kind of had a feeling, and we were like, "Oh no!" So the quarterback scenario started spreading through Twitter, and what are we gonna do? And about an hour and a half later, my boss comes down because we've been talking about football. He's an Eagles fan. He came down because Russell Wilson was in talks with the Eagles. We heard about that, and I told him Russell Wilson's not going to the Eagles. And he comes down and he's like, "Hey, the Broncos just got Deshaun Watson," and that's what he told me. And I was like,
"That's sick."
No, I was like, "No, that doesn't make sense." I was like, "We wouldn't go anywhere near Deshaun Watson." I was like, "What do we trade?" You're like, "Oh, a bunch of picks and some players." And so for about 45 minutes, so the crazy part is before news broke on Twitter, I could have broken the news.
Yeah.
So for about 45 minutes before there was any tweets about Russell Wilson to the Broncos, if he had not came down and tricked me and tried to lie to me, I would have broken the news 45 minutes before anything. So I'm refreshing Twitter.
Whatever. Keep tooting your own horn that you think you would have broken that news, but that's okay. Look,
I was refreshing Twitter.
The point is, the Denver Broncos have a new quarterback. We're going to talk about it. Welcome everybody to the show. If you like what you see, if you like what you hear, please like, subscribe, share, hit that notification bell. That way, you know when we go live, so you are always ready to join us at a moment's notice. On top of that, okay, this is the MHRT Network. In addition to Nothing Rhymes with Orange and Blue, we have other shows. Don't miss on Tuesdays, MHRT Podcast with the Boss Man Mundungus, Glenn Hauser, Mr. Boggins, and it mixes up between Richie Rich and Bree. You don't want to miss it, okay? On Wednesdays, the video series Broncos Breakdown with Bronco Bill drops, 7654, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, everywhere where all of these drop at the same time. And on Fridays, Isaiah's video series Rough Draft, which I'm interested to see how that's going to go this week since the Broncos. We'll get into that.
Completely just threw
Rough
everything
Draft. Our draft series drops every Friday at 7654, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. Don't miss them. You keep joining us and get it out there, guys. Share it out to everybody because they want to, as I say it every week. You see it above me now in our new background. They want to be part of the NRW crew. They just don't know it yet. All right? So it's up to you to make sure that they figure it out. With that being said, I would like to bring in right now an amazing guest. I'm so pumped to have him on the show. It's his first appearance on this show. He's been on another MHRT show before. We've had his partner, his podcast partner on this show before, but it is my honor to welcome the most tattooed Broncos analyst in Broncos media of 9 News, the Locked On Broncos podcast, and the Locked On Broncos podcast. Please join me in welcoming Cody Roark.
Hey, you guys are too kind with the introduction right there. Appreciate it.
There it is. Well, I'm not wrong about the most tattooed analyst in Broncos.
I try. I got it going. I need to work on my other sleeve now.
Hey,
I got the chest piece going, man. We're ready to rock and roll.
As soon as the taxes come in, I'm following you. Okay, I've had plans. I've had these.
My wife doesn't know it yet. But,
I've had these
that's what
maps
she's
for
getting
years
for my
that just
birthday.
have nothing on them yet.
That's exactly what my fiance just said too. I said, "Hey, I'm going to spend my tax return money on tattoos," and she said, "You better not." So I was like, "Gosh, dang it!" All right.
No, look. Here's how you do it, Cody. All right, since Isaiah and I are both married, and you're on your way there. All right, the way you do it, you let her get you pick one big ticket item for you, and then you let her pick a bunch of little ticket items, and they build. You let her get this, that, the other, and then you're like, okay, I let you get this stuff. I'm gonna go get my tattoo. You say tattoo. I'm
with it,
and that's how you get away with it. Honestly, it hasn't worked for me yet, but I know it's going to, and I'm gonna keep trying.
Hey,
Johnny's been trying that for years. Johnny's been trying to get that sleeve for years.
For years. So Isaiah and I, real quick. Isaiah and I, we met in the Army. We were in the same unit together. He was an infantryman, and I was his combat medic. So I have this beautiful American flag, photorealistic American flag with "We the People" that I want to get on this arm, and on the underside I want a soldier's cross with the names of my fallen my brothers who didn't come home with me from Afghanistan, and I've been wanting it for years, and my wife's just like, no, we can't afford it this time. So someday,
yeah,
I'm gonna make it happen.
That's a great tattoo idea, man. I definitely, if you get that, you better send me a picture. I always like that, man.
Yeah, I'm getting
all over Twitter.
My chest darkened for my birthday in April. My wife's gonna ask me at some point in time in the near future what I want for my birthday, and so I want to try Whataburger for the first time, and then I want to finish up my chest, and I'm gonna pay for my half sleeve myself. But
Whataburger thing, dude.
We got Avatar is in here. The chat is filled up. We got Avatar. He says, "What's up, Broncos country? It's a dangerous time to be in my high city, baby."
That's right.
DJ says, "What's up, Broncos country?" He says,
Boom.
"Mr. Unlimited is our QB. Let's go."
For real. So, hey, let's get right down to it. The title of this episode today is Denver Gets Dange-Russ. That's right. Because that's exactly what's happened. It's exactly what's happened. Denver is now dangerous.
No, they really are. I mean, with the addition of Russel Wilson, it kind of changes everything. I think the perception, because I think on a scale of 1 to 10, prior to the whole Russell Wilson news, I think Broncos country's excitement for 2022 is at about like a 3.5. And all of a sudden it's like up to a 10 now after that news. It was a wild day because obviously that morning, what happened was Aaron Rodgers informed the Green Bay Packers. He was going back to Green Bay. It was between Denver and Green Bay in retirement. He went back to Green Bay. Broncos country's like, okay, hey, now what do we do? So we reacted to that initially. We did a podcast on that. And then we brought on Tim Jenkins. We talked about some college quarterbacks that, hey, who should Denver look at?
Get on this show, by the way.
He's a busy guy. Like I said, hey, the mid-afternoon is probably best for Tim. He's outside of that evenings. He's training, coaching up. He's doing a fantastic job. But then outside of that too, we recorded an episode with Tim about, hey, now that the Broncos are out of there and Rodgers sweepstakes, who do they look at as a young guy? We recorded that episode, literally 2 episodes. And then all of a sudden the news happens. I'm like, we got to completely scrap these 2 episodes. We got to record an emergency podcast now. Like it was chaos, but it was a good thing. I'm just saying,
Cody, this is why a live podcast is so much better. No, you don't have to ever go back and redo anything.
We got Mile High 6 in the chat. He's a Canadian Denver Broncos
fan.
Wow,
we know the name Mile High 6.
Let's go.
Good to see you, friend. It's been a while.
Welcome back. Welcome back. So how is Tim?
Tim's good, man. He's a busy guy. Like I said, he's going all around the country too. He's working with all these high school athletes. He's working with some pro athletes, college athletes, just training mechanics. And they just got done putting on this high school training camp thing in Texas. And so, a lot of different athletes from all over the surrounding areas, Texas, Arizona, Colorado, just putting in work, man. So he's doing a really good job. The man is the quarterback development GOAT.
I mean,
he's so
I saw
smart.
a video of him doing that today. He was training these young kids. He was telling them he doesn't want them to look down while they're looking at their targets. But you got some fans in the chat. Bronco Bill says, "Welcome, Cody." Avatar says, "What's up, Cody?" Dreamweaver says, "Cody, what an amazing guest." EJ said, "What's up, Cody?"
Dude, I've been wanting to get you on the show for so long. Just having you here, it's surreal.
State Farm's in the chat.
State Farm.
Well, I guess we might have to change your name because Aaron Rodgers is State Farm, but
it doesn't matter.
He said, "Go Broncos, country, welcome."
Like a good neighbor,
Russell Wilson.
Gary is there. Anyway,
Avatar says, "If my pain tolerance was higher, I would get a U.S. Navy tattoo." I got my blue cord tattooed on my right shoulder because I changed jobs from the infantry. So I knew I was going to change jobs. It's hanging up on the wall right there, but I knew that I got it tattooed on my shoulder, my blue cord.
I fell asleep while my rib cage was getting tattooed, so I have a really high pain tolerance.
I always have to drink.
The tattoo artist thought I'd passed out. He actually stopped, and I'm like, "What are you doing?" And he's just like, "Oh, I thought you passed out on me." I'm like, "No, man, I'm paying by the hour. Let's go." I laid back, closed my eyes, and he kept on going. I mean, it was awesome. So I got that pain tolerance. So anyway, so let's just keep. I still want to talk more Russ because this. I apologize. We always get off on tangents on here, Cody, and I apologize.
It's good, man. It's
what happens when you get two best friends, like real life best friends before they were podcasters on the same show?
It's fantastic.
So anyway, what was your initial like reaction to this? I mean, were you happy? Were you kind of disappointed we didn't get Aaron, but okay that we got Russ, or is Russ who you wanted?
I was okay with either quarterback. Like I said, I think for Denver, the biggest thing is the roster that they have. I think the belief around the league nationally was that they're a quarterback away from really being a true legitimate playoff contender and maybe a Super Bowl contender and things like that. So, there was that conversation. I got it. And so for me, I go live on Pro Football Network every day, and I was literally 5 minutes away from being on air, and I get the notification. I'm like, oh shoot! So I call Sarah. I'm like, hey, did you see this? And he goes, what? He goes, did you see what Adam Schefter just tweeted? He said, no, because he's flipping a piece of salmon on the grill after
I saw that on your spot.
And I was like, dude, Russell Wilson's now a Denver Bronco. And he's like, what? He's like, dude, we got to record a show. I'm like, it was unbelievable. I think it's one of those moments where I think everyone in Broncos country, every fan's going to look back and say, hey, I remember where I was when the move happened, almost kind of like Peyton Manning. Like, where were you when the Peyton Manning thing officially happened? Kind of the same exact thing here with Russell Wilson. It's exciting. And look, I can tell you this, players are really excited about it. The offensive players are stoked about it. Russell Wilson's already got a group chat set up with the receivers and any skill guy there.
That's a leader, man.
Things are on track here.
Stop it. I can't take it anymore.
So where were you then? Where were you when you found out? Because
I was at my computer getting ready to go on air for Pro Football Network Live, and I was like panicking because I was like, oh shoot, I have to record an emergency podcast. I can't do it until an hour after the show though, because I'm about to go live on air. And so we reacted to it instantly at Pro Football Network, and it was wild, man. It was a great time.
I was, this is TMI, but I was sitting on the toilet, like scrolling through. I'm not even kidding. I was scrolling through Twitter. That's what I do. That's what you do when you're in that moment. And I'm like, oh man, I gotta call Isaiah. And like it was and Isaiah, I know where you were. I mean,
I was at work.
That's right. But I'm gonna remember that day. I'm gonna remember that day extra because and here's the funny thing. I have 3 kids, Cody. I have a 7-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a 1-year-old. Yes, those 2 are 11 months apart. COVID babies. But so I've been working all day. I was so mad at him. I've been working all day on getting my youngest to walk. I've been standing him up and then letting go and stepping back and be like, come on, buddy, come on. And nothing. He'd just stand there, wobble, and fall down. Until I went to work that afternoon. And then my wife sends me a video. She had just gotten home from work. She held out her arms and he walked right to her. But same day, I'm going to remember that forever. On March 8th, my youngest took his first steps and the Broncos got Russell Wilson.
Hey, there you go. That's huge, man. Congratulations.
I had a question for you, Cody. EJ says, do you guys think we will have at least 1,000-yard receivers next year?
I mean, I think it's certainly possible. You finally have a quarterback who's consistent with throwing the football. I mean, and we talk about it too. You can make the argument that he's the best deep ball passer in the National Football League, and now he's coming to Denver. I think a lot of it too, especially between now and by the time the season comes, OTAs, these guys are going to get together. They're going to throw. They're going to build that chemistry with one another. So I think that they could get a jump on that, which will be a huge advantage. That way you don't come into training camp and you don't have to deal with trying to get on the same page. You get on the same page now because that's exactly what Peyton Manning did. When Peyton Manning became a Denver Bronco, he got to work right away with Eric Decker, DT, and just all those guys and just bringing them all in. So it's going to be the same thing.
You mentioned Russell Wilson being arguably being the best deep ball passer in the game, and we can go to the clipboard. Let's go to the clipboard. So Wilson is, since he was drafted in 2012, Wilson is the #1 quarterback in yards and passes 30+ yards down the field. In completions, he has 51, and in touchdowns, he has 15. So he's known for his deep ball, and he's the #1 quarterback in the league when it comes to that. And since 2016, he's had the second highest passer rating when it comes to throwing the football down the field. So, I mean, you have these guys who are deep. You got Cortland Sutton, 6'4" receiver, who had 153 yards last game with Teddy Bridgewater, and he's a Pro Bowler. And you got Tim Patrick on the outside, who's 6'5" and had over 90+ targets without a drop. I mean, you got these sure hands boundary guys for these deep balls. And so this is definitely, and Nathaniel Hackett with his offensive scheme, he's going to make Russell Wilson play the 20-yard in with Jerry Jeudy and the seam routes, but he's also going to let it fly. He's also going to let him let it fly.
He is. No, and I think that's there's a lot of excitement too. And I think factor into utilizing Jerry Jeudy in the role that I think we've known him to be instead of the motion guy here for the Broncos offense. I think I do think you will see 1,000-yard receivers here for Denver. I think you'll see contributions. I don't think that we'll necessarily see them have the same type of elite production we saw in 2013 when it was like Peyton Manning and you had all the guys contributing and you had 4 or 5 players with 10+ touchdowns each. I mean, that was ridiculous in and of itself. Yeah. But it will be very team friendly. I think there will be a lot of balance here because look, the Broncos do have a run game now with Javonte Williams. And man, I tell you what, if they can get another guy behind him, I'm not sure what the plan is. I know Melvin Gordon wants to come back to Denver, but he wants to be the primary guy. But the reality of the situation is you don't need to be the #1 guy. Like, here's the deal. No. Both he and Javonte each had equal carries in 2021. They had 203 carries each. And today's day and age, Javonte Williams, or not even Melvin Gordon too, these guys aren't built to have 27 carries a game. They're built to each have maybe 15, which is perfect balance, I think, between the two guys. So I don't know.
Especially when you got one that is so masterful at the outside, which obviously Javonte. I mean, Javonte, he's so good at breaking tackles. He is so good at runs after contact, and that's fantastic, even going up the middle. But but I think we saw his best work going to the outside. And obviously Melvin Gordon, you watch his career going all the way back to San Diego before it was LA Chargers again. You watch him going all the way back to San Diego, and he was even then he did most of the bulk of his good work is up the middle. So the two of them complement each other very well because they have such different skill sets. Yeah, and you can utilize both of them for their skill sets that way.
Well, I think with the acquisition of Russell Wilson, I think Melvin Gordon's definitely going to be willing to be like, you know what? Okay, let me not be selfish. But speaking of rushing, the rushing attempts per game, Seattle. So the big deal about Russell Wilson wanting to leave was the play calling with Carroll and the rush heavy. So Seattle was even though they were rush heavy, Seattle was number 26 in the NFL with 24.3 rushing attempts per game. Mm-hmm. Denver was number 14 with 26.8. And Green Bay, the reason why I wrote down Green Bay is because where Nathaniel Hackett is coming from, was number 18 with 25.9 rushes per game. So you got 26 rushes per game, rushing attempts per game. You can split that easy. Javonte Williams 13, Melvin Gordon 13. In that scenario. I mean, is there really – who was the running back one last year? You could say Melvin Gordon because Javonte Williams was a rookie, but, I mean, did the rushing attempts and the carries say that? Did it bear witness to that? It was pretty even every game. Yeah. I mean, as much as we say we don't like Pat Shermer.
Generally speaking, you saw Melvin on the field.
Of splitting the carries out.
Well, generally speaking, you saw Melvin on the field before you saw Javonte in a game. He usually got the first run almost every game if you look at it.
But that almost meant nothing at the end of the game when you saw the carries and you saw the numbers. It was even. Yeah.
Then you can tell him, but look, dude, you're the starter.
It's all about title though for some guys. Like Melvin's very particular. He wants to be the feature guy, which I simply don't understand. Don't you want to go and play winning complementary football? I think it's this mentality too. Like Melvin's about getting paid, which, rightfully so. I think that his production as a Denver Bronco has been pretty good. Like I said, he's probably been the best back that the Broncos have had in the last couple of years. And the way that Philip Lindsay was in there, like, I don't think it was Phil's fault necessarily how he looked in Pat Shurmur's offense. I think a lot of it was based on the scheme. The scheme did not predicate to the strengths. And not to mention when Philip Lindsay was in the game for Denver, everyone knew it was a run. So it's like Pat Shurmur did that in a sense where it was not very team friendly there. So I don't know, man. Like I said, I know Phil gets kind of a bad rap by some fans. A lot of people are like, oh, you guys just love him because he's the Colorado kid. Phil was great for the Broncos. I mean, in 2018, watching him in person at training camp, he really turned it on there. And not to mention, obviously, his rookie season, he had back-to-back 1,000-yard rushing seasons in 2018, 2019. You put a lot of respect on a guy like Philip Lindsay for that there. But, for Melvin Gordon, I think in the last couple of years, he's been super reliable at the running back position. You need a big play to happen. He's going to be able to do that there. And now you add in Javonte Williams. We see the NFL transition to a little bit more of a by-committee approach. Unless you're built like Derrick Henry, you don't want your running back to be getting 28 carries a game. It's not feasible or sustainable. Now that you've even added an additional regular season game, which look the NFL in the next maybe 5 to 6 years, they're going to look to add another regular season game to the mix as well. So it's like, It's all about being smart. You don't want to run your guys into the ground. I think balance is the way to go.
Well, especially with the NFL schedule going up a game and maybe even another game.
Yeah,
I mean, I've heard rumors that they might look at taking it up to 18 games a season.
And I just mentioned that. I mentioned that a couple weeks ago, and everybody's saying free Javonte. And I mentioned,
Javonte ain't locked in anyway.
And I said, he's got improvements to make on his vision. But I said, look at Christian McCaffrey, Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry, the workhorses of these teams. When they got injured, minus Derrick Henry, because they had a competent quarterback in the backfield, but Nick Chubb, Christian McCaffrey, the workhorses, when they got injured and went down, Saquon Barkley, that was it.
Yep.
Why would you want to put that? Why would you want to put Javonte Williams in that situation where if he goes down? Now we do have a competent quarterback now, Russell Wilson, but at the same time, you don't want your guy to get injured and splitting those carries for 1 or 2 more years with Melvin Gordon. That increases that longevity of your running back, Javonte Williams, for 1 to 2 extra years. Yeah. You beat him up now, that cuts he may not even make it out of his rookie contract.
What were you going to say, Cody?
No, I was going to say that's spot on too. But the main reason people want to free Javonte, it's fantasy football. Like, look, at the end of the day, I could give 2 cares less about fantasy football. I'm in one league. I love it. But it's like, I don't lose sleep over if my guy doesn't produce. It's like, hey, that's the nature of the game. It's all fun and games here. But at the end of the day, like these athletes, they take a beating. Like I don't know if many people really understand just how physical the game is for these guys. We watch it on TV and like, oh yeah, he's a pro. He could take this hit, get up. And it's like, no, like these dudes play banged up, ever since training camp. They come into training camp 100%. After the first week of training camp, they're never 100% the rest of the way. And that's a lot. It's very grueling. And people act like that, professional football players, they just play for 6 months and then bam, they're good to go. No, they are working year round. Like they're taking the physicality, they're working year round afterwards. I mean, it just never stops for them. They maybe I'd say maybe pro athletes, they maybe get a month and a half every year total to recover and just rest and not have to worry about anything. Everything else outside of that, and they still have to stay on top of training. So it's a brutal game, man.
Miller with a Corona, making Twitter videos about how much he wants to come back to Denver, but I mean, and it's great. So what in your opinion, one thing I loved about this trade? I mean, I went on, I went on for a second last night on Let's Talk Broncos with Zach Seegers and Bree and Joey Richards over at Mile High Sports. And I just brought up a comment. I said that I wanted to praise the prowess of George Paton in how he executed this trade and what he managed to get versus what he gave. How amazing that was. And because a lot of Broncos country seems to think we gave way too much. I'm sitting here looking at it going, are you kidding me? Are you joking? But
could have been worse. Trust me.
The fact that we didn't have to give up a single one of our true receiver, of our receiving weapons. Noah Fant, okay, but we still have Cortland, we still have Timmy P, we still have Jerry Jeudy, we still have and KJ, and a lot of people keep forgetting Isaiah, and I keep saying we keep forgetting KJ Hamler's going to be coming back healthy.
Yep.
So we got those 4. So of those 4, Who do you think is going to benefit the most from having Russ under center?
I think all of them will. Like that's as
But if
cliche
you
as it
had to
sounds.
pick one, gun, squirt gun to your head. If you had to pick one,
I'm going to say Cortland Sutton. I think for him, his strength is getting downfield, and he's continuing to evolve as a route runner himself. But the downfield presence there, you have to focus on that if you're a defensive guy. Look, I'm a defensive guy too,
Sure.
and I always look at the Broncos offense as if I was playing defensive back, if I was playing corner, or if I was playing safety. How am I going to maybe game plan against these guys? Well, you don't have to worry about 6'5" Tim Patrick, 6'4" Cortland Sutton. So how do I play leverage against them? Well, I think for me, the best coverage would be to be play underneath coverage, some cover 2 man under. If you're going to go lock up man, have a safety over the top, or you play cover 2 and have the safety drift up over the top there, and you jam and you play underneath there. That's how you play against some of those size guys to help negate the big play. But then it's like, if you do that, guess what? That's where Jerry Jeudy inside the slot, that's where he's going to find openings. He's going to find soft spots against zone coverage. He can create separation against man coverage.
I mean, his average separation is 2.5 yards?
He has the number 1 separation in the league by any receiver.
insane.
And it wasn't even the 2.5 yards. I think the one that came in second wasn't even close.
No, it was like, I think 0.05 was the next closest thing there.
So 2.5 yards in the NFL, that is a huge window.
Huge. I mean, all you really need is a half yard of separation realistically, I think on average, to be able to make a big play, right? And it's all about where the quarterback does. Now you have Russell Wilson, who obviously is very accurate. That means that Jerry Jeudy will have a lot of success as well. So it's like when you try to game plan against those guys, there's that. But then it's like, okay, hey, let's say that you just go empty. You empty it out, and let's say you have KJ Hamler in the game. You roll play action. We saw it in the preseason. KJ's speed is unbelievable. To be able to get behind defenses the way he is, that's going to be a big part. And I think that KJ is going to play a little bit of that Tyler Lockett role that Lockett had in Seattle here for the Broncos. So it's like all these guys have the chance to eat. It's pick your poison, truly. And if they can stay healthy,
he'll take the top. I mean, KJ Hamler will take the top right off the
And this is where Nathaniel Hackett's you could not script this any better. You've got Nathaniel Hackett coming from the Shanahan scheme, his first time as a head coach. He gets Russell Wilson as his quarterback, the best deep throwing quarterback in the NFL, one of the most accurate quarterbacks in the NFL. He's still mobile. So in that situation you presented, you get empty 5 wide, all these guys in. Don't forget you have 6'5", 4'6" Alberto.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's where Nathaniel Hackett's brain and prowess comes in. What are the possible variations that you can draw up for this skill set? I mean, you have everything in every position. You got bigs, you've got tight ends at the seams, you got the route runners, you got the speed in KJ Hamler. You got if you go down the list, each weapon on the offense has their own statistic. For example, Javonte Williams had the most broken tackles in the NFL, and I think the person, Jonathan Taylor, who was in second, a Pro Bowler, had like 20 or more carries in him.
Yeah.
Melvin Gordon has gone. Yeah, Melvin Gordon has gone 6 seasons with 9+ touchdowns. Tim Patrick, 90+ targets with no drops. Jerry Jeudy, 2.5 yards receptions. KJ Hamler, 4.240. Cortland Sutton, Pro Bowler. I mean, you can go down each line, and each one has their own thing. And if you put a Russell Wilson quarterback, this is unreal. Like I said, it's like a dream. And everybody on Twitter was like,
I'm still trying to pinch myself to make sure
I still haven't gotten it. I think once and I tweeted, I said, are the Broncos eligible for Hard Knocks?
Can you imagine the viewership?
You know, I think they could be, just because obviously they have a new head coach, but I don't think that George Paton and the Broncos will accept that. I think they want to work. They just want to put the work in and they want to do that. I don't think they really care too much about that, which I agree. You know, there's a lot of things that go on, and when there's a camera around, sometimes they get access to stuff, but then you get leaks from some of those people that shoot footage, and it could get ugly.
And they're always running around too. I mean, you got to think those cameramen, they're going in and out of locker rooms. It's got to be distracting, and you don't want that. You don't want those distractions. I mean, it'd be fun to see, just because we are Broncos fans. It'd be wonderful to see that. But
while we got you here, Cody, Christos Jenkins, welcome back. Brings up a good point. Can't wait to see who follows Russ, which brings us to the next conversation. There's some names out there that Benjamin Albright has thrown out there that I've done some research on. Right now, with the news breaking before we came on that Khalil Mack is to the Chargers, not as big as of a threat as he was in the past, but he is a threat. And him and Joey Bosa. So right now, the number one hole, and I just tweeted, Johnny, you and I talked about this earlier. Mm-hmm. The number one hole on the Broncos roster right now is right tackle. So, based off what in my opinion, the number one hole is right tackle. So based off what you've seen, I mean, you got Morgan Moses. I mean, you got Lael Collins, Dennis Kelly. Who are you looking at, and who would you like to see as the right tackle for the Broncos?
I still think Bobby Massey is still kind of in the mix, and I want to give a little bit of a shout out to Bobby Massey. He did pretty well for being the right tackle this season. There was that one play, I'd say the one big play he got beat on that was pretty bad was against Odafe Oweh in the Baltimore Ravens game, giving up a sack there. But outside of that, I felt like he was pretty solid all year long. Denver may look to run it back with him. I know they're going to keep an eye on Dennis Kelly, and a reason to, obviously that he spent time with the Green Bay Packers last season. Justin Out and Nathaniel Hackett, but also the Broncos worked him out last year in the offseason before he ended up signing in Green Bay. The Broncos went on to sign Bobby Massey. So there is Dennis Kelly. I honestly don't believe Denver's going to go out and spend big on the offensive tackle position this year. I think maybe next year they'll look into it. I know a lot of people are like, hey, should the Broncos trade for Lael Collins? I don't think that they're going to do so right now, especially considering the lack of capital they have already. Like, they have some pretty good capital still in the top 115. I believe they have 4 picks. They still have a lot of capital there.
Five in the top 115, 4 in the top 100.
There was talk that all they're going to ask for Lael is day 3.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't think we're going to pull the trigger. But for Bobby Massey,
and you have Calvin Anderson as a restricted free agent, so he'll be a backup option, or he'll be a starter. Like, I was impressed.
And I definitely mentioned Calvin Anderson earlier today. Me and Johnny were talking about it earlier, but I don't think Bobby Massey is the fit. I don't think he fits the scheme. He's not athletic enough.
Probably not as much.
Unfortunately, Bobby Massey was number 26 in right tackles in the NFL out of 32. He had a 7.4% sack rate, so he was bottom 10. It's a possibility, but like I'm high on Calvin Anderson, and Johnny and I spoke about this a lot, which is Morgan Moses. He played with Washington under LaFleur, McVay, and Shanahan, and he played for the Jets last year. Dennis Kelly as well. Dennis Kelly gave up 1 sack last year, and I think Morgan Moses gave up 4. So they're both high commodity right tackles. They're definitely going to come with a price tag. So Bobby Massey definitely is an option. I think, unfortunately, a lot of people are overlooking who we have here now and kind of looking to the free agents to try and get that big ticket name. For example, one of the ones that people have overlooked are, they've gone Rob Gronkowski, Jimmy Graham. My thing is, I'm okay. I really want to re-sign Eric Saubert. He had his personal season career high touchdowns last year, and he's a great run blocker.
He's a stud. I mean, Eric Saubert, too, has got a lot of respect in that Broncos locker room. I mean, Vic Fangio praised how good he's been and how good of an addition, a leader. I had a chance to talk to Noah Fant in Los Angeles just right during the Super Bowl week there. And he even said, like, hey, dude, having a guy like him around was nice because he's a veteran presence. He understands. He always works hard. And not to mention, he's just a grinder on special teams, too. So not only will he contribute on offense and special teams, but, he's going to be a guy that's going to be a vocal part. He's going to do things the right way. He'll lead by example. You need guys like that. And look, as we've seen, you can't enter a season, in my opinion, I think, with less than 3 tight ends. I think you have to have at least 3, maybe 4, if you're lucky, if you're fortunate, depending on if the Broncos keep a fullback. I would love to see Saubert back. I mean, like I said, he's got a lot of respect inside that building. He wasn't the guy that was going to get a lot of pass volume in terms of that. I mean, we saw him a little bit, have some action in the preseason in the passing game. They should have done that a little bit more in the regular season, but a solid blocker for the Broncos there. So he had his
career record touchdown, so he became more of a passing guy, and he'll definitely step up in that role. And hopefully, we draft a tight end. We can draft that 3rd tight end. People are talking about if Trey McBride drops to number 64. We draft Trey McBride as tight end 3, and what you do is you remove Saubert from that special team slot because he's more of a tight end 2. You don't want him to get injured. He's a veteran presence, a good run blocker that can absolutely help the tight end room with Albert O, who's stepping up into his I believe his second or third year into the NFL, into that tight end 1 position. So I'm definitely, and I think you get a hometown discount with Eric Saubert. Leave that tight end free agency alone, and you stay with Eric Saubert. So I definitely think so. EJ says thoughts on Hassan Reddick. So the Broncos get him in free agency.
Reddick is a name to pursue. Obviously, for him, he spent some time with the Arizona Cardinals in 2020. He had 12.5 sacks, and then he followed it up this season with the Carolina Panthers, kind of on a prove-it deal. Like, hey, this production I had in Arizona was not a joke, and he followed up with 11 sacks there. There's some interest there, though, by the Arizona Cardinals from some of the reports I saw earlier today that they have strong interest in bringing him back. Yeah, so it's like they might be okay with losing out on Chandler Jones. I think Denver's biggest splash move they're going to make this offseason free agency, I probably think is going to be an edge rusher because, as we know, it's so important to be able to get pressure on quarterbacks. Look what the Chargers
perfectly leads right into this question for you.
Going to get Khalil Mack, and then they have Joey Bosa. It's like, okay, you got Bradley Chubb is entering a very big year in his career in terms of being able to prove it. You need a guy opposite him to be able to do it. And so I think Denver's going to make a big splash at edge.
Well, with Hassan Reddick, before we go to the next question by Glenn, Hassan Reddick was on that, like you said, that the Arizona Cardinals, and he's a 6'1", 240 guy. And that's what really caught me off guard was his size. He's not big. Well, he's like a yes, he's short and
quick.
Fast.
Quick.
And over the last 2 seasons, he's had 23.5 sacks. He's had 23.5 sacks, and he's top 5 in the NFL in sacks in the last 2 seasons. The only people above him are T.J. Watt, Myles Garrett, Aaron Donald, and Trey Hendrickson, and then Hassan Reddick he's up there, top 5 edge rusher in the NFL. So I mean,
get paid.
And Benjamin Albright said, that's a name and that's a 4-year deal.
Well, that was actually somebody that Isaiah, you and I were talking about before we
a week and a half ago we had discussed Hassan Reddick. Right? Yeah, we discussed him. Go ahead, Johnny.
Yeah, we discussed Hassan Reddick for like an hour.
Like a week ago, yeah, we went.
Yeah, like over a week ago, and then like 2 days
Albright said the same thing.
Came out, said his name on BCT, and I was like, Isaiah, I said it.
I think Albright also said that Chandler Jones and Hassan Reddick and Randy Gregory are probably top 3.
Yeah,
I'd be okay with Chandler Jones or Hassan Reddick.
Mm-hmm.
Hassan Reddick has given more production, and he's cheaper, and he hasn't missed a game his entire career.
And he's younger.
Yeah, I would worry a little bit about Randy Gregory. Like I said, I mean, he's got so much potential and so much talent, but it's like the maturity aspect there for him. And what I mean by that, watching him and watching the Cowboys last season, there were several games, primetime games that I watched where I just watched him hit guys laid out of bounds, cost them 15 yards. And he also had that in the playoffs against the 49ers. He had several big penalties in that game that were just completely avoidable. And things like that, I'm not quite sure the Broncos want to add that to.
Yeah, he seems
no, we do not.
Let's roll in because Cody's going to want to get out of here pretty soon. So we're going to roll through a few more questions real quick.
Glenn says, Cody, what are your top 3 dream free agent signings?
Oh, that's a tough one. I think I'm going to look at based on, team need. We look at edge. We look at right tackle. We also look now also linebacker too. It's really tough to kind of say like dream. I do think that edge rusher is probably going to be critical. Like for me, I think I would be excited. I know Von Miller has told several teammates, former teammates here in Denver, that he's looking to come back. Like it's really between LA and it's going to be between Denver, between these two teams. I think a lot of it for him depends upon like if he's going to return to Denver, what is he looking for to make contract wise? He's a 2-time Super Bowl champion. He's a Super Bowl MVP, obviously. And his production since going to the Rams, it was elevated. And a lot of people want to talk about the Broncos, that he didn't have much success here in Denver this year. He got off to a hot start. He was Defensive Player of the Month in the month of September. I think people forget about that. People want to say
I actually had forgotten about that, if I'm being honest.
I did too as well.
People say that he's washed, and I'm just like, I don't know what people are looking at. Like, are they just looking at sacks? Are they looking at the stat sheet? If you go and you watch Von Miller on film, I mean, when they didn't have Bradley Chubb opposite of him, they were struggling to get pressure home. And Von Miller was still, getting sacks, but it's like Von saw much more attention than he should have because of the fact they didn't have Chubb opposite of him. I know Chubb tried to give it a go in week 2. Then he had the ankle roll up on the second play, being out there on the field. And, he missed that time there. And then Von unfortunately got injured against Cleveland on Thursday Night Football and then got traded afterwards. But, like I said, I think if you can get a Von Miller, a Chandler Jones, or a Hassan Reddick, I consider that a major win for the Broncos, major advantage for them. Outside of that, too, offensive tackle, I don't imagine the Broncos are going to go out and try to spend big. I don't think that's going to be the case here. I think they'll evaluate their options going into the next season, especially at right tackle. But I do think a Dennis Kelly makes sense here. I think Calvin Anderson, I think you get one of those two guys there. Why not? I mean, why not even see go into a competition? One thing about Calvin Anderson that stood out to me last year when he started at left tackle for the Broncos when Garrett Bowles couldn't play against the Dallas Cowboys, against that pretty good defense and that pretty good pass rush they have there. I was thoroughly impressed with his versatility they had. And like I said, for him, he was going against size, he was going against speed, and his technique was very refined. So it's like for this type of scheme, I think he's perfect for what Nathaniel Hackett wants to do, especially with the wide zone, which requires the offensive tackle to step wide and seal that defensive end pass rusher, or if they're getting out wider, to get up to that safety or get up to that play side backer and seal them to allow runs to get to the outside. That's where I'm at there. Outside of that, I can't really see the Broncos going out and spending too much money here in free agency. Just because you have money doesn't mean you go out and you spend it. However, if in fact the Broncos do, and there's a possibility, if they sign Russell Wilson to an extension now and spread it out, they could honestly free up more cap space. I think linebacker will be the next position they take care of. You have Micah Kaiser as an exclusive rights free agent, RFA. And then you also have, if I'm not mistaken, who else the other one? You have Jonas Griffith. And then you have Kenny Young's going to be a free agent, Josie Jewell, Alexander Johnson. I think they look to bring back Jewell. And maybe he doesn't, but that's the thing. Like, he's a true Mike backer. And he doesn't have to be that guy that has to cover. And look, I think he's very underrated in coverage as well. A lot of people say, "Oh, he can't cover nobody." He's pretty young.
He improved greatly last year.
Yeah.
He was the number 4 linebacker in the NFL, inside linebacker, before he got injured. And
he was a pissed missile.
And I think Brandon Browning having to step up where the green dot.
There
really
we go.
helped
We
his
just heard
maturity.
that's the 3rd time this week. Twice from Patrick Coyote and once from you that I've heard piss missile.
Oh man.
So,
my good friend Patrick. I love it.
So I think Brandon Browning stepping up in that position really helped. So you put both guys who's won the green dot, Josie Jewell and Brandon Browning back there. I think that's
Mike
really
and Will.
inside.
That's a good combo right there.
I think that's a good inside linebacker core. And I think you signed Jonas Griffith as depth, and you draft an inside linebacker in the and send him on the special teams. I think you drafted tight end as well. Send him on the special teams to back up Eric Saubert and Alberto. But if I'm going to go edge, I think I agree with you. Those top 3 guys are good. My 3 would be Calvin Anderson, Dennis Kelly, and Morgan Moses as the 3 tackles. Johnny and I were talking about this earlier. Calvin Anderson has not only did he play really well left tackle, but he's also shown his willingness to change for the betterment of the team and what the team needs. He was willing to.
I got to have a discussion with Garrett Bowles.
So he was willing to go ahead, Johnny.
I was going to say I got to have it, which is hard to do. I mean, you're a coach, Cody, and so I know you know, but you're just getting to when I got to sit down and talk with Garrett Bowles in January, and we were talking about this. Like, he literally said it. I remember exactly how he put it, but it was something along the lines of switching from being a tackle, switching from the left to the right. It's kind of like spinning in a circle, patting yourself on the head, rubbing your belly while trying to eat a churro, jumping up and down in a snowstorm, on the top of a semi truck going down a dirt road. Something along those lines is how he put it. And that's not easy, but we've seen video, like recently we've seen video put out by
Calvin Anderson.
Calvin Anderson, thank you. Wow, brain blank. By Calvin Anderson of him working on his motion to the right.
Dude, I tell you what, that guy's got really good, whoever edits and makes his videos fantastic. But here's the deal with Calvin too. I had a chance to talk with Calvin last offseason. This dude is super focused on it. And I've always gone to say, like, there is a reason that Mike Munchak, when the Broncos claimed him off of waivers and they added him in 2019 onto the roster, there is a reason he was on the active roster all season long since being a Denver Bronco. And there's a lot of developmental talent there. And I think George Paton sees that. So don't be surprised. Look, Calvin Anderson is a restricted free agent. It'll be easy for the Broncos to bring him back. This could be a year where he actually gets thrust into that role. I think he's ready. And look, I'm excited. Calvin's a good dude. Well, he and Garrett, they're like brothers, man. They're like, they argue like brothers. They have fun. They pick on each other.
Same thing I said to Isaiah earlier today. I said they're a much taller version of me and you.
They are unbelievable together.
Yeah. I would love to give Calvin Anderson that opportunity to step in there and show he's a starter. I mean, he's quote unquote homegrown. I mean, so you'd have Garrett Bowles, Dalton Reisner, Quinn Miners, and Calvin Anderson, which are basically 3 out of the 4. Calvin Anderson wasn't drafted by the Broncos, was he?
No.
So you got 3 out of the 5 offensive linemen who are homegrown. Yep. And then you take Calvin Anderson, who we signed off waivers, and you got all these guys who have been together, who've been in the locker room together. And then my other question to you would be, and I floated this and doing some research, Lloyd Cushenberry gave the most sacks by any center in the NFL. George Paton just restructured Graham Glasgow's contract.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, you know exactly where I'm going, Cody. Fix it off on me.
Well, like I said, there's going to be some pressure on Lloyd Cushenberry here in training camp here. And, I think for him, I don't know what it was. I don't know if it's a scheme. I don't know if it's just the transition. I mean, playing for a powerhouse like LSU, I mean, they were dog walking people, at halftime that year. They put up all these big numbers. For Lloyd Cushenberry, he's just got to continue to keep growing. And, he could be a backup this year. I mean, he could be a backup center. We could see Graham Glasgow potentially move to center, or in fact, we could see Quinn Miners move to center and Glasgow stay at right guard. I mean, the Broncos are looking almost every option here, but there's going to be competition on the interior, specifically at center and right guard. The Broncos want to find a way to keep Quinn Miners on the field because what we saw from him at the end of the season, there was a lot of promising things.
Unbelievable.
I don't think he's going to be a back. He'll be a starter next year, but it's like, how do you maneuver the offensive line? Butch Berry's going to come in as a guy that says, hey, I don't have any affiliation to any of you guys just yet, so we're going to do things my way. I'm excited to see what's going to happen. But not to mention,
Johnny, state your Graham Glasgow stat real quick for Cody.
So I mean, you look at Graham Glasgow. His best season in the NFL came when he was in Detroit, and he was playing center.
He was an Iron Man in Detroit too.
Yeah, he was. His very best season was an Iron Man.
What is that?
He was a guy that was super durable, and I feel so bad for him too. Like coming to Denver, he kind of dealt with some injuries, like some calf injuries, quad injuries, and then he had the injury that happened to him this past season should have never happened.
That ankle getting stepped on.
It was such a stupid decision, and that's really on the Broncos coaching staff. Literally 2 seconds before halftime, it's like you're on your own 35-yard line. Why are you trying to do that? Like you throw a pass to the middle of the field to Javonte and let him get tackled, like 10-yard gain. What is that going to do? But in the meantime, you lose your right guard there. Stupid decision on that. You take the lead going to halftime. That's what it should have been.
But I would love to see him at the center because his very best NFL season came at center.
Like you said, he was Iron Man when he was at center, and then
he wants to be in Denver too.
Yes,
he gets moved to guard, and all of a sudden, he starts getting injuries. And I think you put Graham Glasgow at center, and honestly, in my opinion, you don't touch Quinn Miners at right guard.
No,
that's just my opinion.
There. You keep him there.
He's phenomenal at right guard.
You don't,
especially
you don't
in this new system, this outside zone blocking, him pulling him.
Yes, and last year
he's going to climb. He's going to climb that. He's going to climb that. And he's going to pick up
the next level.
And
so Quinn, Dalton Risner and Garrett Bowles, the most success we had off of running was to the left side. So, and then Dalton Risner does really well in this outside zone scheme, like his first season with Scangarello.
Yeah. Big year for him too, by the way, coming up.
Yes, big year, because this is a contract, basically a contract year as well. So, I mean, you have that left side, you put Graham Glasgow at center, Quinn Miners at right guard, and then let's say Calvin Anderson's the guy. I mean, you could have a top 5 offensive line for Russell Wilson. That's why Russell Wilson is coming. I mean, the Broncos were number 11 in pass blocking last year.
It was
the Seattle Seahawks was number 26. Seattle Seahawks gave up.
Get ready, man. Get ready for Russ.
Yeah, Seattle Seahawks. I have it written right here. The Seattle Seahawks gave up 46 total sacks. The Seattle Seahawks gave up 46 total sacks in that year. And the 49ers gave up 33 sacks. And the reason why I mentioned the 49ers is because we have our offensive line coach was the assistant offensive line coach in San Francisco.
Yeah.
So you bring that blocking scheme over, and they gave up 13 less sacks than the Seattle Seahawks.
There you go.
So you get an athletic right tackle like Calvin Anderson. It's going to be fantastic.
For poor Cody's sake, who I just know is absolutely exhausted. Let's get a couple more questions from a couple more. Let's you and I each. If I start with you, Cody, each of us get one more question for you.
Glenn's begging to ask this question.
Yeah, he just texted me. Glenn just texted me, and he's of course just
chomping at the bit.
So Cody, you had an amazing Super Bowl week. Congratulations on that. Lucky son of a gun getting to be there in LA. I listened the whole week, by the way.
Thank you.
What was your most mind-blowing moment of that week, and who was the nicest guest?
And I tell you what, it was kind of like a dream, like in a situation like that, you're dealing with so many high-profile athletes. I actually got to see Russell Wilson there. The cool thing about like Radio Row, each of these athletes that walk around, like the big superstars, they have like maybe 4 or 5 people with them, publicists and stuff like that. Russell Wilson had 12 to 13 people, like publicists with him, like escorting him wherever we went. So it was really cool to kind of see that. That's that superstar appeal of a big name guy. But I would say probably like one of the coolest moments was really just getting to sit down and talk with Justin Herbert, obviously who plays in the AFC West. For me, a really cool story is I actually got to grow up as a high school. I graduated in 2012. The next year I got into coaching, and I actually got to watch Justin Herbert when he was in high school as a sophomore, a junior, and a senior. So watching him grow from the high school kid that I saw at Sheldon High School in Eugene, Oregon, to going to play for the University of Oregon. Like, I've always been a big Justin Herbert fan. So we got to talk and bond about, because my coach actually coached him. So it's like we got to bond on that. The Pat McAfee show was a huge one. Yes. I mean, Shadow Jacker in the chat says being on the Pat McAfee show, that was just a really crazy, candid moment there. Actually getting to talk with Pat was actually really cool. Like he and those guys are such fantastic dudes, and they're, like I said, they're busy. They got all these people trying to come up to them, but just willing to talk and just chat and stuff like that. It was cool because I go up to Pat, I'm like, hey, Cody Roark profile. And he's like, hey, Cody, I know who you are. He's like, I always appreciate all the kind tweets you send over. I'm like, hey, man, that's awesome. Like, he knows who I am. Like, what a world we're living in. Like, this is very unfair. I get to do what I love for a living. But I would say just getting to interact with everybody. I mean, we had Barry Sanders, we had Warren Moon, we had Justin Herbert, Michael Irvin. I mean, the list goes on and on. Tony Khan. We had Tony Khan on the last day. Tony Khan was a fantastic pickup there. So Noah Fant, Shelby Harris, Justin Simmons, got to chat with Justin. It was a great time, man. It was a great experience. I don't think I could have traded anything for it.
Justin Simmons, that's a perfect segue. Shadow says, Cody, last season deep passes was our Achilles heel. How can we solidify the safety's position? I don't think deep passes hurt us as bad as it did the year
your name
before.
isn't Cody.
Coaching.
Cody. Shut up.
I would say coaching. Here's the deal. Okay. The Baltimore Ravens game. Yeah. Vic Fangio had a specific game plan for Lamar Jackson. The Broncos game plan, the game was to force him to beat them through the air. The reality was Denver, I mean, the pass rush pressure was not getting there. Like early on it was, but it's like when your defense is on the field and your offense isn't converting, it's tough. It's tough to be out there on defense, especially against an offense like that. You had this combination, where the Broncos are analyzing everything they do out of the too high safety look. I'll go back to the Dallas Cowboys game, for example. You see a lot of trips from the Cowboys. Well, what would happen is you'd see Justin Simmons at times or Kareem Jackson, whoever's lined up to the trip side, they're playing over the top there. And then you're seeing them drop to the middle of the field. And then the other safety on the other side, opposite of the trips formation, they're king the number 3 receiver on the trip side, seeing, okay, hey, who's coming across, who's coming vertical. There's so much combination and disguise there. The stuff that happened with Hollywood Brown's big-time touchdown was really just a miscommunication between Justin and Kareem there, and that happened early on. You want to make those mistakes early on in the season, but down the stretch of the season, actually, the Broncos secondary, I mean, it was balling out, and especially in that last game too against Kansas City Chiefs. Michael Ojemudia was absolutely balling in that game. He had 11 tackles and he had several passes defense, man. I'm happy for OJ. OJ's a good dude, man. I enjoy talking with him. He's just a dude that's grinding and trying to put his head down and work and really just try to be something in the NFL, which I'm excited. He's got a bright future ahead of him.
Yeah,
I don't think it's much of an issue, though, for Denver. I think that Denver's got the secondary. I think they're in really good hands, honestly.
Well, George Payton's been talking to Bryce Callahan's agent. I would love to have I want to see Michael Ojemudia, Mojo, play
we call him Mojo.
But I have some news. On the owner perspective for Denver. This just so Robert Smith, how he said he has no interest.
Yeah.
He just changed his mind. He's just changed his mind.
Russell Wilson does that for you.
And he's now putting in a bid for the Denver Broncos. So he's like,
and here's the thing: by himself, he could win that bid.
Yes. So he's preparing a bid for the Broncos in a surprise reversal.
Hey, Colorado. Yeah. I wouldn't be against it. Against it. Colorado, born and raised. I mean, it's his home. If he is a football fan at all, then he probably grew up a Broncos fan. So hey.
We'll see how it is. My biggest stance on the ownership situation is I just hope whoever bids on the team to try to become the controlling owner, I hope they care about the Broncos as much as Mr. Bolin did. That's the most important part. Everyone's so enamored about, hey, this guy's got deep pockets. Like, an owner with deep pockets can do a lot for you, but if they don't care about football, it's going to ruin your football team. Like Jeff Bezos as an NFL owner is the worst idea that could ever happen to the game there. And I hope it never happens because he's got the money to own the Broncos. Like, he could float that in his Depends there. I mean, that's how much money he's got. But it's like he's more concerned with sending a rocket into space. He's not going to be.
I was going to say he's going to build a stadium on the moon, though.
I mean, believe it or not, Kanye West has deep pockets as well.
Oh man,
not that deep.
Yeah, I don't like. Not even.
I'm just saying, someone who has deep pockets that doesn't care about the game.
But it still has to be approved by a majority of the ownership. So 24 people must approve. Kanye West and Antonio Brown would definitely not not be approved to own an NFL team. Like,
That's so funny to me.
Jay-Z, however, I could see Jay-Z owning an NFL team one day. I don't think it's going to happen in Denver.
I hope it's not the Broncos.
I don't think he's going to do
It'll
that,
probably be some New York team, whatever the case may be.
But hopefully, I mean, like right now, I think what George Paton has done, bringing in Russell Wilson and building what he's built so far here, the promise, the roster there, whichever new owner comes in, hopefully they're like, hey, you keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, just listen to George Paton.
You let me know what you need. I got you as the new owner. That's all the
George
Broncos need at this point. Yeah.
In George, we trust.
So last thing before we let you go, Cody, is the way. This is how good George Paton is. He comes in his first year. He gets an award for the best draft class in 2021. Yes. Then he makes a blockbuster deal to trade Von Miller, which shocks everyone.
Yes.
He gets 2 picks for him, gets Von Miller a Super Bowl. Von Miller is now publicly advocating to come back to the team. Then he goes out and gets Russell Wilson, and then still has 5 picks in the top 115 after getting Russell Wilson. Right now, with currently $26 million in cap,
and enough cap to take care of your rookie class.
$26 million in cap space. Plus closing on 30 if you give him a new contract. That's who George Paton is. So with this right tackle situation, this edge, re-signing Bryce Callahan, Josie Jewell, George's going to take care of it. We can speculate, but we're good. He's got it.
Yeah. No, General George has not steered us wrong just yet. So, hey, you know what? George Paton, he's got my full trust, and I'm excited, man. I am so stoked about what he's been doing so far here in Denver.
I'm going to call him General Paton.
Last question for Cody. And I just want to point out, everybody, real quick, if you haven't already, please go follow Cody on Twitter at Cody Roark NFL. Cody is on live every day, at least every weekday. Locked On Broncos, him and Sarah Benjer. Great watch on YouTube. Great listen. I do both. And I love your show. And so please, everybody, if you haven't already, go follow Cody. I want to point out how amazing of a guest Cody is. Because at the beginning of the show, he told me and Isaiah, I might be able to give you guys 20 minutes, and he's been sitting here for 56 minutes. That's how awesome a guest Cody is.
I appreciate you guys,
and I appreciate you, brother, and can't wait to have you back if you'll come back. Obviously.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
So please do that. Last question: what are you? It's a very simple one. What are you most excited about for the Broncos this season?
The offense, for once. Like, the excitement level was very high. Like, I was excited anyways about the offense, like with Javonte Williams. Like, guys like Javonte Williams provided so much excitement last year for the team. However, it's just now on an entirely different level now with Russell Wilson, all the weapons that we know that Denver has, all the potential that they have. And, man, if they can all stay healthy, I tell you what, good things are in store. Like, the offense will be better here in Denver. I'm super excited about it. I think Broncos football is going to be exciting in general. Like for me, I watch the team. I cover the team. And, when they win, it's great because the fan base is super excited, but I have no emotional outcome based on wins or losses, which is great because I feel like for me, it allows me to be very level-headed, right? As a former player, as a former coach, I like to look at almost every angle as to what happened, what went right, what went wrong. Right. Where can a guy continue to get better and maybe improve? Like I look at all those aspects from the team building side of things, but it's like also at the same time, like there's times where I'm like, hey, this is fun football to watch. Like I'm excited. I think that's going to come back around for Broncos country. Like for example, last year I went to games. For me, press box not really my thing. I like to go sit in the stands. I like to sit next to fans. I like to see the reaction. I like to be a man of the people there. Like that is honestly the best experience possible, but I'll tell you that I still get to provide coverage of the team. So it's like, what, press box ain't all that. I love it. Like I'll do it, but being able to interact with the fans. And I think that's the most important thing. I want to be able to share Broncos fans' thoughts and feelings on the platform that I've been fortunate enough to have. And I wouldn't have the platform if it weren't for fans who tune in to listen. So it's a way to give back, man. It's super important.
Where you are, that's the dream. That's where I want to be one day.
I'm very fortunate. I never thought I was going to be doing what I'm doing, to be honest with you. Like I never had any idea. You would have told me 6-7 years ago that I was going to be doing this. I'd be like, yeah, right. Like you're kidding. So I'm living the dream, so I never want to take it for granted. I always believe that the people that help me get me there is Broncos fans. And so it's like, being able to share their frustration, like giving them a place to say like, this sucked, like this was horrible, do this, sharing it in mailbag questions. I like to be able to do that. I think the thing is we all deal with this. This is the age of social media. You do deal with trolls from time to time. You deal with people that get disrespectful. But the reality is like, hey, I'm a nice dude in real life. Like, a lot of these people, want to talk and throw shots your way. It's like, hey, you know what? That's cool. That's your opinion. You don't know me. But the reality is I love you. Even if you don't like me, it's all good. We're here for Broncos. It's the one thing that unites everybody. Football is the most beautiful sport in the world. And I owe a lot of my life to football. Like, I think football saved my life. My life was heading down a different direction when I was a kid, and it could have went a complete U-turn, and football helped save that. So that's why I'm here, man. So I think that I'm here for a purpose just for that, and to just be able to provide good coverage and talk with fans. That's the most important thing. But I never want to get too big. That's the thing is, like, a lot of times when you get notifications and like I said, you can get the amount of followers that you have, and a lot of people let that, get to their head. Like, I just never want to do that. Like, I'm the same person. Like, in person, you see me in real life, you talk to me, I'm excited to have a conversation with you. Like, I never want to be too big. Like, that's the thing. I always just want to be somebody of the people.
Absolutely. And as a fan, fan-led Broncos-based podcast, as fans, that's what we are, first and foremost. We thank you for giving us your time.
No, absolutely. Like I said, I love doing these too, and I love seeing all these shows that fan-led shows that are going on right now, because it's the fans, it's the pulse of how the city feels, and it's super important because it gives other fans the ability to come to someplace, vent or celebrate, build community. That's what it's all about, man. So I'm all for that. So you guys keep it up here at the MHRT, man. I'm super excited for you guys.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Definitely appreciate you coming out and giving us your insight. And we'd love to have you on the show anytime. You just, hit me up at Nothing Rhymes. You can hit Johnny up at Broncos Viking. And make sure you guys follow Cody Roark NFL and like the video for Cody. So, Cody, we definitely appreciate you coming on. Make sure
we can do the mile high five.
You know it. Oh, God. All right, guys. Hey, we got it. Real quick in the chat, there's everybody's thanking you, Cody. We got Shadow Jack. Hey. Cody Roark is the best work, unlike the ones in Sin City. Cody's the man. You rock, Cody. You are the man, and we really appreciate you coming on. And we will finish your part of the show up tonight with a big mile high five. So if you hadn't heard, this is the show where that started, by the way. So
I love it.
Where it began. So get ready. Help me out, everybody. All you NRW crew out there, please put your arms out to the side and give me a big mile high five. Yes. I love it. It's been an honor, my friend, and we can't wait to have you back. We will be listening. I will be listening all week to Locked On Broncos, and we can't wait to have you back, buddy. So
absolutely,
thank you again, and we'll talk to you soon.
Absolutely, appreciate you all. Have a good rest of your evening.
You
Absolutely,
too, brother.
Thank you so much.
Good night. All right, dude. What? We got a little bit of time left. We still got a little bit of time left in the show, but what a great guest. Cody Roark, everybody. Again, if you have not already, please jump on over at Cody Roark NFL on Twitter. You can't, and he's easy to find. Give him a follow because he's one heck of a follow. He puts out some great stuff, great tweets, great content. Go listen to his podcast, Locked On Broncos. Catch him on Pro Football Network. And he writes for 9 News as well. So, hey, definitely give him a follow. It's worth it. That being said, Isaiah.
Yes.
Let's talk NFL a little bit too. Of course, we're still rolling on this Russ train because this is, look, we talked about it. This is the news. This is the thing that we're going to remember for years. It's kind of like, people always say, like, I remember where I was the moment this happened. Like those disasters and things like that. My mother always talked about JFK. The moment that JFK died, she remembers where she was that exact moment. People talk about like the Challenger explosion. That's what they remember. Broncos fans are always going to remember where they were the moment they found out that Peyton Manning was coming to Denver, right? And when they found out that Russell Wilson was coming to Denver. So I'm loving all this hype on Russ, and I'm going to ride that. I'm going to ride the Russ train. We're going to ride this Russ train into the ground because it's so exciting. We've been waiting so long, 7 years. We've been waiting
a long time
for this. We've been waiting.
We have a new name, Johnny.
Moment. What's that?
Flying Dragon Films.
Flying Dragon Films, new name in the chat. Thank you. He says, awesome. Get you guys here. Here's a toast to you. I got a little bit of beer left. I don't drink, by the way, everybody. I'm going to make this announcement. I will not be drinking on the show the way that I used to, quite as much. I was recently diagnosed diabetic. And so the last couple of weeks have been a definite life-altering experience for me. and it means that I've got to cut out my drinking quite a bit. So my intake on beer is quite a bit lower. So I've got a little bit in this each episode, and that's where I'm keeping it. But that being said, I don't know if you can tell, I've begun dieting and I've begun working out every single day, and I'm down 10 pounds. I don't know if you can tell, but I am down 10 pounds. So feels good.
Congratulations to you.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you. So let's continue to talk. So here's you, Flying Dragon Films. Welcome to the NRW crew. You can see it right up there. Hey, everybody use that hashtag. If you're part of the NRW crew, I want to see you on Twitter using that hashtag, NRW crew. That's who you are. Nothing rhymes with crew. All right. Now let's talk a little bit more about. Let's talk some NFL news.
All right. So we're going back to the clipboard.
Okay. Well, I mean, I've got some things too, so we'll do both.
Go ahead, Johnny. Go
ahead. Go.
Okay. So what we're getting in Russell Wilson has always been one thing that stuck out to me the most about Russell Wilson. He does not throw many interceptions. Right. He's the number one deep ball thrower in the NFL for almost 10 years straight. He does not throw in many interceptions. For example, weeks 1 through 5 of 2021, he had 10 touchdowns and 1 interception. Yeah. When he came back, weeks 9 through 17, he had 15 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. His stat line was even better than Drew Lock and Teddy Bridgewater combined. So I mentioned this to Johnny earlier in the week. If you take Drew Lock's best characteristics and you take Teddy Bridgewater's best characteristics and you combine them, you basically get Russell Wilson.
Kind of.
You get a guy you get a guy with an absolute cannon that loves to take the deep shot. That's also somewhat mobile, and you also get a guy who's smart, will check it down, who can throw the ball over the field, accurate, and doesn't turn the ball over much. That's who Russell Wilson is. He's great. That guy. Plus, he loves to throw the ball deep.
Yes, he does, and it's phenomenal. I cannot wait to see what he's going to do with the weapons that he's going to have here. And to all those, listen, the majority, you really look at Twitter, the majority of the trolls that are sitting here talking about how the Broncos got screwed in this deal, most of them are salty Seahawks fans who just really,
or salty
really
AFC West fans,
or fans of teams in the AFC West that are about to have to who suddenly have a new rival that's about to scare them.
They're shaking.
A little bit.
They're shaking.
And let's be honest. There is a certain. I won't use his name. I don't need to. There's a certain analyst out there, pretty big name too, who happens to be a Kansas City Chiefs fan, who has been trashing this whole thing, this whole move, since it happened. And I'm sorry, you are so wrong. In everything that you're saying about this, you are so wrong. And and I get it. You're a Kansas City Chiefs fan. You hate it, but you know what? You're going to see this season how wrong you are. So that being said,
well, one thing Russell Wilson left Seattle for was he didn't like the unbalance, the lack of balance between running and pass, and running was heavy. And Green Bay was Nathaniel Hackett in Green Bay was number 34.6 pass attempts. Versus 29.1 in Seattle. So he's getting a coach that likes to pass more. Green Bay was number 7 in the NFL in touchdowns per game with 3.1.
Yes.
So not only do we throw the ball more, he scores more. And Russell Wilson loves to throw the deep ball. Now he's getting a coach who will let him lead. He will let him lead from the front. So Nathaniel Hackett has experience. He's not a pushover. He's not a guy that's you're going to walk over as a doormat. But he is a first-time head coach. And for a first-time head coach to get Russell Wilson, a veteran who likes to throw the ball, who's finally going to have some input, they're going to go over this playbook, over, under it, through it, behind it, side to side, on top of it. They're going to WizKid says most of the people I've seen think the Russell Wilson trade was a steal for the Seahawks. The people that think that don't know the Broncos roster.
The people that think that are national media that don't watch Broncos games.
Even
the Broncos, let's be honest. For the last several years, the Broncos have been irrelevant, and nobody in the national media cared.
Well, he's not only talking about national media. He's also talking about there's a lot of people that are regular fans that think Seattle won the
and that's
the
fine.
trade. And I'm saying the reason why they think that is because they don't know the Broncos roster. So when they see Noah Fant gone, but they don't know who Albert O is. They see Shelby Harris gone, but they don't know who McTelvin is.
There are things that each one of those guys need to work on. You could have worked on and been better at here on the team. And you know what? And then there's things that each of these guys that are going to be stepping into their positions will need to work on. And nobody's ever perfect. Nobody's ever perfect. Even Russell Wilson. We're all sitting here pounding the table, being so freaking excited that we got Russell Wilson in Denver. He's not perfect. He's going to make mistakes. And, and I hate to say this, so do not take me wrong. I absolutely think the Broncos make the playoffs this season. Absolutely. Do I think, do I think we're instant contenders? I said that the other day when we first made the trade, and it might have just been that moment. In that moment, I was so pumped. Talk about being instant contenders. Maybe not, because it takes a while to get comfortable. It does. It takes some time. It takes some, you got to look. You're going to have a new quarterback with a whole new coaching staff. Okay? It's going to take some time. Do not be surprised if we lose a few games this season. And I know, there are members, there are passionate members of Broncos country that are going to be coming straight out the gate with pitchforks the moment we lose our first game. Our first, second, whatever, how many other games we might lose while trying to get this new system installed and get comfortable with it.
But the
Russell
point
Wilson's
is, already in a group chat. Russell Wilson's already in a group chat with the wide receivers. They're probably going to be doing routes as soon as it's finalized and all that. Nathaniel Hackett's solidifying the playbook. WizKid says, do you think Khalil Mack will affect us at all? Absolutely. I think Khalil Mack is still – he's not as elite as he was. I don't believe he's as elite as he was. But, a guy like that you sleep on, he'll put pressure, and he'll get 1 or 2 sacks. I think more importantly, it's most important for us to get a solid, good right tackle.
Yes, it is.
I wouldn't mind spending a pretty penny for him for a right tackle, and I wouldn't mind spending a pretty penny on the edge.
Right.
Linebacker, you got Josie Jewell. They're in talks with Bryce Callahan. We still have Mojo. So right tackle and edge to me are the guys you want to spend the money on. And if we spent more money on a right tackle than we did an edge, I'd be completely okay with that. I think a good right tackle would definitely minimize Khalil Mack's effect.
Sure. That being said, it's a little bit earlier than we got started a little bit late tonight, and I do apologize. I actually need to get out of here. I didn't realize what time it actually was. I need to get out. I love you guys. I love you, NRW crew. I love you, Broncos country. Love you, MHRT fam. But I do have to go take care of my children. It's part of my nightly ritual, and I gotta go be a dad. So, that being said, thank you all for joining us on another an amazing episode during an amazing week of being to be a Broncos fan of Nothing Rhymes with Orange and Blue podcast. Please do not miss our other shows on the MHRT Network. Tuesdays, MHRT Podcast 7654 on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. Don't forget, we also have several video series. Wednesdays, Broncos Breakdown with our friend Bronco Bill. Fridays, Isaiah's show, Rough Draft, will drop same time, same place. Do not miss those. They're going to be fun. And get ready, y'all. There's going to be some more new surprises, some new content coming up. Get ready. It's going to be exciting, and I can't wait for you to be a part of it. That being said, you can also catch us in audio form everywhere you find your favorite podcasts, be it Apple, Google, Spotify, iHeartRadio. We are on them all. Go search MHRT Network. You will find us, and you can listen to our audio versions. Now, it's with a huge honor that we now can say that Denver has its quarterback, its franchise quarterback of the future, for at least the foreseeable future. So let's get excited. Go Broncos. Go Russell Wilson. Let's get ready to do one end of the show mile high five for our new quarterback. This one is for our new quarterback, Russell Wilson. All right? Are you guys ready for this? Isaiah, are you ready for this?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Please, one more time. I know we already did it with Cody, but we're going to do it one more time. This one's in honor of Russ. Russ, welcome to Denver. We cannot wait to see what you're going to do in orange and blue. All right, please get your arms out with me, NRW crew. And my high five. Yes. Thank you all very much. We will catch you next week, and do not miss our other shows. Go Broncos!
Go Broncos, baby.